All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming to today's class. We are having a little bit of a pivot moment here. Today's class, we were going to celebrate Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, but I had a little hiccup with my scheduling. That was meant for next month, and I did not realize it till this week. It's been one of those weeks, so we're still going to cook some really delicious recipes for today's class, but we're going to table our appreciation of that month till next month for May's class. So thank you all for being flexible and bearing with me on that. But again, we have some really great recipes coming up today for our WellSense plant health class. And we are going to just dive right into our first recipe, which we are making a kimchi style slaw with some pear and Napa cabbage. It doesn't have actual kimchi in it, but you could really pizzazz this dish up by adding some chopped kimchi. It's just kind of the same process that you make kimchi. But it's really delicious. I really, really love this slaw. I make this quite frequently in my own kitchen. And then we're also going to be making some galbi or some Korean barbecue short ribs. Really, really delicious. I will kind of just let everyone know that that recipe that we're making does require a really long marinade time. So I did go ahead and prep ribs before class that are marinated, but we are going to marinate ribs together, and I'll make them tomorrow. So if you're cooking along with me, unfortunately, you can cook them, but they're better when they're marinated longer. So we'll go through the process of marinating it, but we will cook some ribs together. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and get started. I will go ahead and spotlight my work screen, and we will kick it off with some delicious kimchi style slaw. Oops, wrong one. There we go. All right. So to get started on this, we are going to do some dicing and slicing of our vegetables. We have a Napa cabbage. We have some carrots, some scallions, some ginger, and some fresh garlic here. Cool tip about ginger: when it has skin on it, and you want to be able to mince it, you want to be able to dice it, whatever you're doing with it, if you take a spoon and scrape it, it will slide that skin right off. I went ahead and I did that before class just to save some time, but really cool way to kind of remove the skin off of ginger with a spoon, especially since the edges aren't super sharp. You don't have to worry about cutting yourself. We'll go ahead and cut our produce first. I went ahead and I cleaned some green onion or scallion, whatever you refer to them as, and we're gonna dice these up. I went ahead and cheated a little bit for today's recipe, but I'm all about quick, simple hacks in the kitchen. And I bought some shredded carrots. I always usually buy those for this recipe, just to shorten the cut time. But we'll go ahead and dice our scallions. I like to bunch them and dice them. If you're new to cutting and you need to take cutting a little bit slower, feel free to do one at a time. But a real quick knife demo here. I have a chef's knife, holding it by the handle. Some folks tend to hold it back, some tend to hold it up. A really great way to hold this to have the most efficient grip, practicing good safety and having, a quality hold to get a good cut, is to wrap your hands around the top of the handle and almost pinch this blade and wrap it back, right? We have really great control. We're able to kind of put some force down into it. And we also, when we're working with our knife, we don't really want to chop up and down, contrary to popular belief. We don't really want to go up and down like this. We want to be able to go up, tip to back, tip to back. That might look funky without me actually cutting anything. So let me put that all together and you'll see what I mean by that. I'm going to put these all in a line. I did wash them and cut the tips off, so they are all ready. So tip to back, tip to back, tip to back. Nice rocking motion, very fluid, very natural, right? Doing this doesn't really get me a clean cut. Also, guide hand. So I'm going to go ahead and take the back of my knife and just scoot that over. When we're working with a guide hand, it's really good to kind of keep your fingers curled into this bear claw to protect our fingertips. You can see here, if I get too close, I'm not going to cause any damage to my fingertips because they are protected under my knuckles. So practicing the claw with your guide hand is really helpful to keeping your fingers safe, keeping whatever you're cutting in place. going to help you get up with your speed. And it takes some time. We all start somewhere. I have more recently gotten a little bit more efficient with my cutting. I'm going to go ahead and just put this in with my shredded carrots. And like I said, if you do have questions, comments, concerns, please go ahead and throw them in the chat, or you are welcome to unmute yourself, but we are recording today's class. All right, let's go ahead and do our pear. So I got a really large pear that I split between these two recipes. So this is about 1/4 of a pear. You could use a whole pear, whatever exactly the recipe calls for, but I'm just trying to divide and conquer between my recipes and limit my food waste. So with this 1/4 of a pear, I'm gonna kind of set it on its side and try to slice it. There we go. Got one more slice there. Perfect. A little uneven, so I'm gonna try to even it out. Got a little bit of the core still left in there. All right, so now I'm going to try to take it down the sides to get some nice slices. They remind me of French fries or the apple fries that McDonald's used to have. This is really one of my like go-to recipes for when I'm getting some salad fatigue. I am a big fan of fun textures and flavors in salads. Most of my salads have heartier, like thicker vegetables than your standard, greenery with some toppings. I love a good, chopped salad. Lots of good textures here. Some of those slices that were a little thicker, I sliced in half so we can try to get the most even bites. I do believe the recipe wants these in slices. I have found that when you cube or dice them up really tiny, you get a better even bite of the pear. It's more distributed. But again, that's the best part about cooking. With recipes, you can kind of tailor it to your own taste preference. Put those in there. Let's add these. All right, now we're going to cut our Napa cabbage. I fortunately found a small one at the store, which was really lovely. I'm going to cut this in half. I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half again. And then I'm just going to work from the front to the back. The front has some more tender leaves. Then as we get back towards the back, they're thicker like that typical cabbage we all know. I would say this type of cabbage has a bit more of a mild flavor. I don't notice it's overpowering. You also will notice that some of these have some more green, less green, and maybe a little bit more of a yellow color to it. They all are okay to use, just different levels of ripeness, maybe size, all good quality. And these do come in varying sizes. That's a big slice. I'm going to cut that in half. You can get huge ones at the store, or this one was somewhat smaller. Beautiful. All right. We need to do our garlic and our ginger. I'm going to save the other half of this and roll this out of my way. All right, so now let's mince some garlic. I like to slice my garlic. Being very careful when I work with garlic, as it is just a small little guy. I'm gonna check the chat, make sure no questions. No questions. Awesome. Okay. Do see some more folks hopped on. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are currently making our Napa cabbage and pear kimchi style slaw. I did already make this announcement a few times, but I do see some more people hopped on. We have a little bit of a scheduling mishap, so we're going to table our lecture for next month, our Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month kind of theme to next class, but we are making some delicious recipes that are inspired from some Asian cuisine. I'm super excited for the ribs that we're going to make together. I've always wanted to make Korean barbecue, especially buying the ingredients for that recipe. Getting the rib cut that you need for that recipe was quite an interesting experience. It's not widely available at the grocery store that I shop at, so I had to get the butcher to cut them fresh for me, which was pretty cool. I don't think I've ever had to do that. All right, let's do our ginger. I do find ginger a little bit of a menace to cut at times. So if I were someone who was buying these ingredients at the store and wanted to kind of speed up this process, I would probably buy pre-minced ginger either in the frozen section. Sometimes they have them in little cubes, or in over by the garlic, you can buy, I believe, pre-minced ginger. I do think the flavor of fresh is much more potent, but I do think it gets the job done. Or in this scenario, you could always pivot to some powdered ginger. I am a big fan of trying to be really sustainable of our ingredients, mindful of cost, and making adaptations when necessary. So if we do need to lean in on, things we already have, like powdered ginger, which, lasts for a very long time. Maybe we have it in our baking section, maybe in our spice drawer. You can definitely lean on that. This is looking great. You go ahead and put this here. Beautiful. Let's just get this out of our way for the moment. Always recommending to, advanced cooks, new cooks, to clean as you go. That will really help ease the burden of cooking at the very end. Nothing's worse than having a very messy kitchen and then having to clean it up afterwards. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and make our dressing or our sauce for this. We are going to go ahead and we're gonna add some rice vinegar and sesame oil, which I have mixed together here. I also have actually I switched. So this is the rice vinegar and some cold water. That was the fish sauce and the sesame oil. I apologize about that. I got those two switched. And I have some gochujang sauce, which is some Korean chili sauce for my spicy friends. I would say this adds some heat, but I am someone who doesn't love spice. I think Frank's Red Hot is about as spicy as I like things. But I really do love incorporating this into salads and dressings and even just dishes. I have the pantry staple in my house, ramen. And the way I like to jazz up my ramen when, groceries are low and I'm looking for just a quick meal, I'll add some gochujang sauce. I'll add some frozen veggies. So really, really great to have. Really wonderful way to spice things up. We're going to give this a good stir, making our dressing here. If you do feel like this doesn't look like enough liquid to really coat your veggies, add a little bit more water to thin it out. You can also add to a little bit more vinegar. Rice vinegar is pretty mild on the vinegar scale, so it's not, in my opinion, you can't add too much. Oh my goodness, this smells so good. All right, giving this a really lovely stir, incorporating all of those colors. This smells so good. This is one of those dishes that it's going to get better and better as it sits. And marinades. I wonder if I bring this down a little bit, if it will be clearer. It looks like it helped a little bit. Maybe not. No, not too much. All right. Okay. We have this coated. This looks great. We're going to set this to the side to let these flavors kind of marinate together. If you want, you can do a little taste test. Maybe I'll do a taste test to see what my initial thoughts are. Mm-hmm. So good as always. This is such a flavorful slaw without having to rely on really salty things. There is some fish sauce in there, which can be a hefty source of sodium, but you can always dial back on that. Lean more into the sesame oil, rice vinegar, those other low sodium flavors. All right. We're gonna get our pan over here. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about our Galbi, our Korean barbecue. So a little bit about this barbecue before we really kick off the actual recipe is we're going to talk about this style of ribs. These are called flanken style ribs. And if anyone out there is familiar with short ribs, braising short ribs, you can buy them bone-in or boneless. They're usually they remind me almost of a petite sirloin steak. You can see that these types of ribs have the bone in them. And I'm sorry for my vegetarians out there. You could use the marinade that we're going to make for tofu and kind of get that type of flavor for tofu or even tempeh. But again, these are beef flanken style ribs. So instead of cutting them this way with the chunk of meat in the whole rib, they cut them the other way. So there's little pieces of rib throughout the meat. And that is for a particular reason. They're cut across the bone into thin strips because they are meant for quick cooking over high heat, which is ideal for these Korean barbecue fast style grilling types of meats. In traditional Western culture, for the short ribs that we're thinking of, they are those thicker meats that are meant for slow braising, where these again are meant for quick grilling. We are going to prepare a marinade for these, really delicious marinade. That's going to cover the surface area of the meat, allowing for a really sweet and savory flavor. And it's going to create a nice caramelized flavor inside the meat as well. So we're going to go ahead and make that marinade. And then after we're done making the marinade, we will actually go ahead and prepare the pre-marinated ribs that I already have here. So we'll go ahead and prep the marinade together, and then we will actually make these marinated ones together. We aren't going to grill them. Unfortunately, the weather at my house today is really yucky. So no grilling today, but we are going to pan fry and we're going to get that nice color on them and try them together. So let's go ahead and make our marinade. All right. As we go ahead and make our marinade, does anyone have any questions so far? No questions? Okay. Has anyone made, oh, I do see we have a question in the chat. All right, so the question is, I missed the intro. Safe to assume the recipes will be available. All right, so I will go ahead and put them in the chat again. Absolutely. The recipe should have been sent to you after you registered for the class, but I always keep them in the chat, so no worries at all. I will make sure to put these in the chat again. Perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and start with our prep of our marinade. So in order to make this marinade, again, we're getting some sweet, savory flavors here. We need our prep bowl. We need some garlic. We need some fresh ginger. We need some tamari, which is a brewed soy sauce, which is actually it's a gluten-free version of soy sauce. And I always opt for the less sodium. We need some brown sugar and some sesame oil. So we're going to go ahead and just start out with our brown sugar. Add some sweetness to our marinade. A little bit more. Beautiful. Do some toasted sesame oil, about 2 tablespoons. We're gonna do about 3 tablespoons of tamari. Beautiful. We are going to need our grater because we are going to grate our ginger. Being very careful. You don't grate your fingertips. Again, using fresh ginger or fresh garlic in these recipes is going to allow you to get the most potent flavor, but we are always allowed to make adaptions where needed. So if you need to use powdered, that's okay. There we are. We are actually going to peel and grate our pears to really make it a source of sweetness in this marinade. And we want it to be able to coat the meat. So we're going to peel it. Let's peel the outer edge. You have a vegetable peeler, you could use that. Just using a smaller paring knife. I have really downgraded the size of this recipe in terms of the meat amount because I cut the meat in half when I prepped half of it for the actual cooking portion. So that's okay, however much of this you want. This can be a rather expensive cut of meat. I believe I got 4 servings for around $40, which I broke into 2 servings for my house, but it is a really delicious fun recipe. I definitely really enjoyed making this marinade, especially grating the pear. I thought that was a great idea. I think this would be fun to do something with like a chicken marinade grating pineapple. So this is just giving me lots of good ideas to maximize flavor of ingredients. All right, we're gonna add some, where's our pepper? We need ground pepper. And then we're gonna grate some garlic cloves. Being careful you don't grate your fingers. If you have itty bitty tiny garlic cloves, you might want to just mince them. Okay, now to stir this, this is looking really good. See how nice this is coming together. Oh, I do see a message in the chat. I'm just going to check the chat real quick. Oops. Oh, no worries. You're welcome. Has anyone ever made Korean barbecue ribs before? Maybe with a different marinade? Or ever ordered them at a restaurant?
I brought them Morningstar, which is a vegetarian and vegan brand. They have Korean barbecue ribs.
Oh, that's awesome. What did you think? Did you like them?
Yes. They're good. That brand is really well, the that brand is really good. Minus the quote unquote fake bacon.
Oh, I do remember too. See, you're not a fan of the fake bacon. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put the ribs into the marinade. I guess I should move our pan over a little bit so we can see. I will go ahead and turn our pan on while we wait. Trying to put these on their sides so that they'll get coated, and I'm gonna kind of just rub it over it. If you were cooking more meat, I would definitely maybe double or triple the marinade so you can maximize how much coverage it's in. All right, these are looking beautiful. I am going to wash my hands And I'm gonna get a lid for this, and I'm gonna marinate them overnight, and I'll make them tomorrow. But I recommend marinating them in a container so you can flip them halfway through. Perfect. Set those to the side. We're gonna pull our pan up front and center. I am working with a plug-in stovetop burner, so sometimes the heat source is a little unpredictable. But because we want to get these to a really nice sear, I'm gonna try to get this as hot as I can. But we'll talk a little bit about the pan that I'm using today. I am using a stainless steel pan, which some folks associate with being nonstick, which is true. There is nonstick pans, and then there's pans like stainless steel, aluminum, copper. But I will tell you, I do see some little schmutz on my pan here. I will tell you, you can work with your stainless steel to make it nonstick by allowing it to heat up to the appropriate temperature. So what you want to do is you want to let it sit on whatever heat setting you're going for. I have it at a little bit of a higher heat right now, between 4 and 5. You want to let it get up to temp. You will know that it's at temp after about 3 to 5 minutes, but we're going to do something called the water test, where we're going to take some water and we're going to flick it. We're going to dip our hands in water and we're going to flick it onto the pan. When you see beads of water rolling around the pan, you're going to know that it's ready for you to use and that it's hot enough. When it's hot enough, we're going to add some oil. The oil will kind of glisten and move around the pan and coat the pan to help it make it more of that non-stick. Now, especially with cooking with things like meat, you will notice sometimes that you would need to place the meat in the pan and you need to let it brown and cook, kind of evaporate that moisture, then it will more or less release from the pan easier. If it's not ready to be flipped, sometimes it might stick to the pan a little bit more. So when you can figure out how to work with something like stainless steel, it's a really wonderful tool to have in the kitchen because it has great heat retention. It's a really nice cooking material. But that there's not that nonstick coating, which can be a struggle for some folks, but doesn't need to be. You just kind of have to play with it a little bit. Also, a word of advice when cooking with stainless steel is you do not want to submerge your pan in water as soon as you're done to prevent it from, caking on there and getting it harder to clean. You do have the potential to warp your pan. And that's really important to avoid because especially if you're working with one of the glass stovetops or an induction burner, if your pan is warped like this, just that slight warp, it won't sit flat and it won't be able to get that equal heat. So we do just want to be very careful when we're working with things to not, we just let it cool and then clean it afterwards. Don't run it under hot water if you can't help it. Minimize that potential warping. All right, so we're going to go ahead and test my water theory. I think it's pretty much there. Let's see if I can do it again and you can notice it. You can kind of see the little beads of water. It's definitely hot enough in the middle. The middle of my pan tends to get extra hot when I'm working on the stovetop burner, but I'm going to go ahead and add my oil. Again, when I let it get up to temp, this really wonderful thing is happening because stainless steel is a really porous material. So there's a bunch of little tiny holes, microscopic holes in this pan. And when we allow the heat to hit the pan, we're letting those molecules swell and close up so things can glide across from it. So that is like the non-stick capacity is we essentially heated it up enough so that it's not going to stick. I have my ribs here. I will say you get a better sear on meat if it doesn't have as much moisture. So I am going to get some paper towels and kind of dab it before I set it down. this around a little bit. And if we were working on a barbecue, again, quick, fast, hot cooking here. We want just that really nice sear. There we go. We'll let those sit, get up to temp. Get that nice, beautiful sear before I flip it. I did have raw meat in my marinade, so I am not going to reuse this. I know some folks might marinate their meat and then use it to top it. I would really recommend avoiding that, especially because when you're working with raw meat, it could potentially be contaminated with bacteria. So this right now is technically garbage. If you do like to dip your meat in your marinade, after it's done cooking as a dipping sauce, I would recommend reserving half of your marinade to the side, so that it's not going to be touched by the meat, but can be used as a dipping sauce. This is definitely cooking real quick. We are on a high heat here. See, some of the garlic is burning from the top. Oh, beautiful, beautiful color. It's cooking beautifully.
Paige, does the same thing apply? This is Jody. When with heating the pan for when you're doing eggs, because I cannot cook eggs on my stainless pan.
Yes, Jody, that's a great point. So that's usually why folks have such a hard time cooking eggs with stainless steel. I will tell you, however, there's something about the egg yolk with eggs that the egg yolks function as emulsifying agent in lots of foods. So in baked goods, they help bind things together. In Caesar dressing, it binds it together, all of those things. I will say, I have not perfected using stainless steel for eggs, but I will say if you let it get up to temp, you make sure you add enough oil, you should be good to go. You don't want to cook it at a super high heat that it cooks so fast. It almost needs to kind of be at a lower medium heat so it can cook itself, release from the pan and flip. But if you do struggle with the eggs, I honestly have a small stainless or a small non-stick pan that I use for eggs because sometimes it's just not worth the fight. But yes, eggs and flaky fish, those two are very tricky for me, as for a lot of people, but sometimes I don't want to cook my eggs or my fish in a mass amount of oil. So you have to pick and choose your battles. But yes, that is my best tip for being able to conquer those eggs without it sticking to the pan. You can even see these released really well right off the bat. Normally I find that I cooked chicken in this pan last night and I kept trying to move it prematurely and it kept kind of pulling off. And I was like, oh no, I didn't let it kind of release itself. I didn't let it get that sear. You can see these seared really nice. They're pretty dark. Lots of good flavor there.
And then how do you get the black off of the pan? I noticed you had some left over, which is encouraging to me.
Absolutely. So I know at first thought you're thinking, should I soak this right after? Honestly, my best advice for this is to let your pan cool. And let me find it. It's like $5. I don't know what's in the power wash, but let this cool down, kind of spray it with water. Just spray it with a layer of soap or Dawn dish soap. Kind of let it soak in that soap for about 5 minutes. And then I can scrape this right away. But stainless steel, again, pain in the butt. I'm gonna go ahead and pull these guys off. If you're still noticing coloring that you don't like, there's a product I found called Barkeeper's Friend.
Yeah, I do have that. So
Yes.
try that. Okay.
I definitely recommend that. I usually do that to all my pans once every couple of weeks. Or get one of the like a bamboo fiber brush almost, like looks like a bamboo, looks like a giant toothbrush almost, but for your dishes, one of those scrub brushes. I think those are really helpful as well. But yeah, I know seeing this right now, you're thinking, oh no, is that gonna come off? Usually it comes off when I just kind of let the soap absorb versus being too aggressive right off the bat.
Good tip. Hopefully that works with eggs too, because the eggs, when I don't cook them well, are a nightmare to clean off the pan.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and I'm right there with you. I think my lack of patience has me suffering with eggs every time I cook them. I don't know what it is. Eggs are just, even my non-stick, I feel like eggs often stick, but I try to not put enough oil in the pan just because I don't want to put a lot of oil, and I think that's where it backfires for me. Kind of moving it around the pan here. My pan in general, when I cook on this stove top, really concentrates the heat right there. So sometimes things tend to burn quicker right there, which is good and bad. I think this is a really fun recipe if you're having someone over, or it's a Friday night and you're feeling like you want to add some more spice, even a weeknight. I mean, I would make this on a weeknight. Really simple way to kind of just elevate a nice meal, right? You're having a really delicious, maybe not a cut of meat that you normally gravitate towards. If you can't find this flanken style cut, because again, this is just a short rib, but butchered in a different way. It's cut across the bone. Ask your butcher. I had to ask my butcher, and then I had to come back and pick them up later, which I was definitely okay with. Traditionally, I think when I cook short ribs, I usually braise them, and I braise them for a very long time. I think I braise them for a couple of hours sometimes, honestly. All right, this is looking really good. If you like your meat a little rare, you don't have to cook it as long. I am going to move this hot stovetop out of the way, and I'm going to put this behind me. Give this a quick little wipe. All right, now I will do a close up. This looks beautiful. For some reason, I think if I also share my face, it makes the camera a little sharper. I don't know why I think that. Maybe I'm just crazy. I think it makes the image a little sharper. This looks so good. You can see these nice browning spots, which means good flavor. The meat is kind of sweating a little bit, which is good. I always recommend letting your meat sit for about 5 to 10 minutes, especially when you're cooking steaks, cuts of beef. There's this phenomenon that happens after you take them off the heat source. It's called carryover cooking. So you can usually expect meat, poultries, any type of animal protein to carry over cook once you remove it from the heat source. Again, for that 5 to 10 minutes post removal, it can go anywhere from 5 to 15 degrees higher. So, I was cooking this. If I would have temped this, taken it off, set it on the plate, it's still going to continue to cook because it's still at that high temperature. It's still going to be, ramping up. So that's just something to consider if you are cooking to a certain temperature, whether for food safety or, for taste preference. Just keep that in mind. Meat can carry over cook. All right, we're going to remove our spotlight. And we have our lovely dinner plate, but we got to come back and check on our slaw. Give it another good stir. Let's take a bite and see how we're doing. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I think if I could say it needed anything, I would add some more sesame oil. I almost forgot the most important part. It was hiding from me and I forgot to measure it before class. We're going to add some sesame seeds to our slaw. Again, adding it some more texture and flavor here. Also some good heart-healthy fats. I also think it just adds a nice visual element as well. If you don't like sesame seeds, you do not have to add it. You could even toast your sesame seeds to go in with that toasted sesame oil. This is looking phenomenal. You can see that some of the moisture from the vegetables and the remaining dressing is at the bottom there, which is great. These are really firm vegetables, so I'm not too worried that if I keep this in the fridge for 2 or 3 days that it's going to get really squishy. They will soften, but it's not going to be, you know, if you had romaine dressing the next day that gets pretty wilty. So this will probably hold up in the fridge. I'd probably say around 3 days. You could probably push it to 4, but you could definitely kind of prep this ahead of time if you needed to. Let's go ahead and get a rib. These look so phenomenal. I am very excited to share these with you. Let's clean up our plate here a bit. All right, here is our finished product so far. We have our Galbi, our Korean short ribs, barbecue short ribs, and we have our kimchi style slaw. We got some good nutrition here. We have some vitamin A, some vitamin C. We got fiber. That fiber is something we can call a prebiotic. That's going to feed the bacteria in our gut. If you wanted to add some probiotics to this, some healthy gut bacteria to kind of give your digestive system a little oomph, you could cut up some kimchi and put in there to add a source of probiotics. You don't have to, but you could if you wanted to. You could also add some more flavor. Let's go ahead and cut. Beautiful. Let me flip my camera. Sorry about that. Let's try this. There we go. Oh, here, maybe I can give you all a closer look. There we go. I have a little bit of pink there. I'd say this is probably medium rare. This looks really good. I'll put you back on the tripod. Sorry about that. Okay. I'm gonna cut this in half again. I'll spotlight myself as well so we can do a taste test review. First impression, really juicy meat, a really nice cut for associating short ribs with usually being a really tough cut of meat. Really sweet. I get a hint of ginger. The brown sugar, there's just a hint of it. This is really, really good. This would be good, a good marinade for my vegetarian friends, for some tofu as well, or even save it as a dressing to add at the end. I'll give you another cut. We'll go through this. If you wanted to eat this with your hands, get down and dirty, you could. I'm not going to do that, but it's barbecue, right? There we go. Really nice cut. Fantastic. Definitely would make this again. I do think it would be more of a specialty thing since the cut of meat was a little more expensive, but you could use that marinade for another cut. Let's go ahead and try our slaw. I love this slaw. It's not such a hard salad that I feel like I'm really, really crunching. Oh no. I'm so sorry, we switched again. It's not a super thick, like I said, vegetables that require mass amounts of chewing. But that gochujang, just a really nice little underlayer of heat. I would say if you want a little bit sweeter, make sure you add the full pear or the half cup. I think I added more of a third of a cup. Really, really delicious. I think this would even pair well with like a nice white fish. Or you could kind of do, put this on like a fish taco almost. Yeah, you could definitely do this on a taco. It wouldn't be the traditional, maybe like Mexican take on a taco. It would be a different type of fusion there, but I definitely think that would complement fish well. All right, I'm going to remove this as a spotlight. Okay. Anyone have any questions, comments, thoughts on today's dish?
Thank you. Looking forward to making it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I'll just say thank you and conclude the recording so that way in case folks have some questions. But thank you all for coming, and thank you to WellSense for sponsoring today's class. We will see you all next month.